I should have kept walking, but the sound of a child crying at 2:17 a.m. doesn't let you pretend you didn't hear it. The rain had already soaked through my jacket by the time I turned back, neon lights flickering across puddles like broken reflections, and there he was, small, alone, standing barefoot near the curb like he didn't belong to this city at all. My heart tightened in a way I couldn't explain. I wasn't supposed to stop. Single moms don't get to play hero, we barely get to survive, but something about him made my feet move anyway. "Hey," I whispered, crouching down slowly like you would with a scared animal, "it's okay, I'm not going to hurt you." His face was pale under the streetlight, hair damp and clinging to his forehead, eyes too sharp for a kid his age. Not lost. Not exactly. More like, waiting. Then his fingers wrapped around mine, tight, desperate, and just like that, the crying stopped. Completely. Like I'd flipped a switch. My breath caught. Kids don't do that. Not like this. "Where are your parents?" I asked softly, but he didn't answer. He just held on, like letting go meant something worse than whatever had brought him here. I slipped off my hoodie and draped it over his shoulders, noticing the fabric of his clothes underneath, too expensive, too clean for this part of town. Nothing about him matched the scene. That's when I felt it. Not heard. Felt. The shift in the air. Low engines humming before the sound reached my ears. Headlights cut through the rain, too bright, too focused, turning the street into a stage I hadn't agreed to step onto. 3 black SUVs pulled up in a line, doors opening in perfect sync, men stepping out in tailored suits that didn't belong in this weather, moving with the kind of precision that made people stop asking questions. My stomach dropped. I tightened my grip on the boy's hand without thinking. He pressed closer to me, small body tense, and for the first time, I realized he wasn't just cold. He was scared. Of them. A man stepped forward last. Taller than the rest, slower, like he didn't need to rush because everything already moved for him. His coat barely caught the rain, like the storm itself respected him. When his eyes found mine, something in my chest went still. Not fear. Not exactly. Something heavier. Something that said I had just crossed a line I couldn't see. "That's my son," he said, voice low, controlled, like the world had already agreed with him. But the boy's grip tightened harder, fingers digging into mine as he shook his head slightly, whispering so softly I almost didn't hear it. "Don't let him take me." My heart skipped. Everything about this was wrong. And the way the man looked at me next, calm, certain, dangerous, made one thing very clear. I didn't just find a lost boy tonight. I stepped into someone else's world. And it wasn't a place people walk out of. I should have let go of his hand the moment that man spoke, but I did not. Something in the boy's voice stayed with me, the way it cracked just enough to make it real. I swallowed, forcing my shoulders back even though every instinct told me to step aside. "He does not want to go," I said, my voice quieter than I expected but steady enough to hold. The men around him shifted slightly, not aggressive, not loud, just, ready. The kind of ready that does not need explanation. The man's gaze did not leave mine. It was not anger. That would have been easier to understand. It was control. The kind that fills a room without raising its voice. "He is tired," he replied calmly, like we were discussing something simple, ordinary, like this was not happening in the middle of a rain-soaked street at 2 in the morning. "Give him to me." The boy's fingers tightened again, and I felt it all the way up my arm. I shook my head before I could stop myself. "Not until I know he is okay." The word surprised both of us. Him, because I said it. Me, because I did not take it back. Silence followed, thick and heavy, broken only by the steady rhythm of rain hitting pavement. One of the men stepped forward, but the man in front lifted his hand slightly, and everything stopped. Just like that. No argument. No hesitation. Power does not need volume. It just needs obedience. What is your name? He asked. Not a demand. A decision. Emily, I answered, my throat dry. Emily Carter. He nodded once, like filing the information somewhere important. Emily, he repeated, slower, like he was testing how it sounded. You are standing in the rain, holding my son, refusing to give him back. When he said it like that, it sounded reckless. It sounded dangerous. It sounded like something I should regret. But I did not move. I could not. He asked me not to, I said, softer now, glancing down at the boy. He is scared. For the first time, something changed in the man's expression. Not much. Just a flicker. His eyes dropped to the boy, really looking at him, and I saw something shift beneath that controlled surface. Not weakness. Something more complicated. Noah, he said quietly. The boy did not respond. He pressed closer to me instead, small hand gripping my sleeve now like it was the only thing keeping him anchored. The man exhaled slowly, like this was not the outcome he expected. He does not trust easily, he said, almost to himself. Then his eyes returned to me, sharper now. More focused. But he trusts you. I did not know what to say to that. I barely trusted myself most days. I worked double shifts, counted every dollar, tried to hold together a life that felt like it could fall apart if I blinked too long. And now I was standing here, soaked, exhausted, holding onto a child who belonged to a man everyone else seemed to fear without question. I am not trying to cause problems, I said carefully. I just found him. He was alone. He is never alone, the man replied. That answer landed differently. Not reassurance. Something else. Something that made me realize this was bigger than I understood. He stepped closer then, just one step, but it closed the distance enough that I could see the fine details. The clean line of his coat, the faint scent of something expensive, the steadiness in his breathing. Everything about him was controlled. Everything except his eyes. You helped him, he said. That matters. His voice dropped slightly, softer but heavier. Which is why I am going to ask you one more time, Emily. The way he said my name made it feel like a line drawn in the ground. Let him go. I looked down at Noah. He shook his head again, almost desperately now, and something inside me refused to break that trust. Not yet. Not like this. I lifted my chin, meeting the man's gaze again. Then. You are going to have to explain why he is afraid of you. The rain kept falling. No one moved. And in that moment, I realized I had just done something no one here ever did. I questioned him. For a second, I thought he would be angry, that I had crossed something I could not see, but instead he went completely still, and somehow that was worse. The rain softened around us, like the world itself was waiting for his answer. He studied me in silence, not rushed, not offended, just measuring. You think he is afraid of me, he said finally, his voice quieter now, almost thoughtful. I did not answer right away. I could feel Noah's grip on my sleeve, small but insistent, like he was listening for what came next just as much as I was. He asked me not to let you take him, I said instead, choosing my words carefully. That is not something a child says without a reason. One of the men behind him shifted again, like the conversation itself made him uncomfortable, but the man in front did not react. His eyes dropped to Noah, really looking this time, and something changed in the air. Not danger. Not exactly. Something heavier. Something personal. Noah, he said again, softer now. Look at me. The boy did not move. He pressed his face against my arm instead, hiding, like even that simple request felt like too much. I felt it then, the smallest tremor running through him, not loud, not dramatic, but real. And for the first time, I wondered if this was not about fear of a person, but fear of something that followed him. He is not afraid of me, the man said, more to himself than to me. He is afraid of what happens around me. That landed differently. I frowned slightly, trying to understand what that meant without asking the wrong question. He noticed. Of course he did. There are people who want to use him, he continued, his voice calm but carrying something underneath it, something I could not quite name. People who do not care how they do it. I felt my chest tighten. I did not know his world, but I understood that sentence. Too clearly. The boy's fingers curled tighter into my sleeve, like he understood it too. So you surround him with men in black cars at 2 in the morning? I asked, unable to stop myself. That does not look like safety. A pause. Then, surprisingly, the corner of his mouth shifted just slightly, not a smile, but something close to acknowledgement. Safety does not always look gentle, he said. But it is still safety. I shook my head faintly, not fully disagreeing, but not convinced either. Then why is he out here alone? That question stayed in the air longer than the others. This time, when he looked at Noah, there was no distance in it. No calculation. Just focus. Because someone wanted him to be found, he said. My breath caught. The words were simple, but the meaning behind them was not. You mean, I stopped, not even sure how to finish that thought. He did not help me. He did not soften it. I mean, he said quietly, stepping just a little closer, that tonight was not an accident. The rain felt colder suddenly. I looked down at Noah, at the way he clung to me like I was something solid in a world that had already started shifting under his feet. And just like that, the situation changed. This was not about returning a lost child anymore. This was about something much bigger. Something I did not understand, but was already standing in the middle of. Emily, he said again, my name slower this time, steadier, like he had already made a decision. If you walk away right now, you might still pretend none of this happened. My heart started to race, because the way he said it did not feel like a warning. It felt like a choice. A very real one. But if you stay, he glanced down at Noah, then back at me, his eyes locking onto mine with quiet certainty. You do not just help him. A beat. You become part of what comes next. And I realized, standing there in the rain, holding on to a child who was never truly lost, that this was the moment everything changed. I just had not decided yet, which direction. The choice should have been easy. Walk away, go back to my small apartment, wake up in a few hours and pretend this night never happened. That is what people like me do. We survive by staying out of things we do not understand. But his words did not feel like a warning. They felt like a line. And somehow, I was already standing on the wrong side of it. I looked down at Noah, at the way his fingers had not loosened once since he grabbed me, at the quiet trust in that grip that did not belong to a stranger. My chest tightened. I knew what it meant to have no one show up for you. I could not be that person for him. Not tonight. I am not leaving him, I said quietly. The moment the words left my mouth, everything shifted. Not louder. Not faster. Just, certain. The men behind him did not react, but I felt the change anyway, like a decision had been acknowledged without needing to be spoken. He studied me again, longer this time, like he was recalculating something he had not expected. You do not understand what that means, he said. His tone was not dismissive. It was factual. I nodded slightly. You are right, I admitted. I do not. A small pause. But I understand enough. That seemed to matter. Not because it impressed him, but because it clarified something. His gaze softened, just barely, before returning to that steady, controlled focus. Then you come with us, he said. It was not a question. It was not even a demand. It was a conclusion. My breath caught for a second. With you? I repeated, because hearing it out loud made it real in a way I had not processed yet. He gave a single nod. It is not safe for him here. His eyes flicked briefly to the empty street, then back to me. And it is not safe for you anymore either. That landed harder than anything else he had said. Not safe. Not anymore. Like something had already changed just by me being here. I swallowed, my mind racing through 100 practical thoughts at once. My job. My son. My life that ran on routine and predictability because that was the only way I kept everything from falling apart. I have a child at home, I said quickly. He is asleep. I cannot just disappear. For the first time, something like surprise crossed his face. You have a child. It was not a question, but I answered anyway. Yes. He is 5. I felt Noah shift slightly beside me, like that detail connected something for him too. The man held my gaze a second longer, then nodded once, slower this time. Then we bring him with us. I blinked. You cannot be serious. I do not make suggestions, he replied calmly. There was no arrogance in it. Just truth. If you stay fully. My heart started beating faster. This was no longer about helping a lost boy. This was about stepping into something I had no control over. And yet, when I looked down at Noah again, when I felt his small hand still wrapped around mine like letting go was not an option, I realized something uncomfortable. I had already chosen. I just had not said it out loud yet. I need 10 minutes, I said finally. His eyes narrowed slightly, not in suspicion, but in calculation. For what? To call my neighbor, I said. To make sure my son is not alone when I go get him. A pause. Then a small nod. 5, he said. Of course. 5. Not 10. Not flexible. Just enough. I reached for my phone with my free hand, realizing only then that my fingers were shaking slightly. Not from fear. From the weight of what I was about to do. And as I dialed, standing in the rain with a child who trusted me and a man who controlled everything around him, I understood something with absolute clarity. This was not me helping for a moment. This was me stepping into a story that was already in motion. And there was no clean way out of it. I had never dialed a number so fast in my life, my fingers slipping slightly against the screen as the rain kept falling, each second stretching longer than it should have. It rang once. Twice. Then finally, Emily. Mrs. Turner's sleepy voice came through, thick with confusion. I am so sorry, I said quickly, keeping my voice low but steady. I need you to check on Liam. Right now. I will be there in a few minutes, but I need to know he is not alone. There was a pause on the line, the kind that meant questions were forming, but she did not ask them. She never did. Give me 2 minutes, she said. I am going downstairs. I exhaled slowly, my shoulders loosening just a fraction. Thank you. When I hung up, I realized he was still watching me. Not impatient. Not annoyed. Just aware. Like nothing I did escaped his notice. 5 minutes is almost over, he said quietly. I nodded, glancing down at Noah. We are going to pick up my son, I told him softly. Okay. He did not answer, but his grip shifted slightly, less desperate now, more certain. Like he had decided I was staying. That thought should have unsettled me. Instead, it grounded me. My phone buzzed in my hand. A message. He is fine. Sleeping. Door is locked. Relief hit me all at once, sharp and overwhelming. I closed my eyes for a second, just enough to steady myself, then opened them again. He is okay, I said. I need to go get him. The man nodded once. No hesitation. No discussion. He turned slightly, and the men around him moved without a word, one already stepping toward the nearest SUV, another opening the back door like this had always been the plan. It was the ease of it that caught me off guard. Not rushed. Not chaotic. Just, inevitable. I looked at the car, then back at him. You really expect me to get into that? I asked. He held my gaze evenly. I expect you to protect your child, he said. And I am giving you the only way to do that tonight. That answer left no space for argument. I swallowed, tightening my hold on Noah's hand as I stepped forward. The interior of the SUV was warm, quiet, insulated from the storm outside in a way that felt almost unreal. I helped Noah inside first, watching as he hesitated for only a second before sitting close to me, his small body leaning in like he had already chosen his place. I followed, pulling the door shut behind me, the sound soft but final. The man slid in across from us, his presence filling the space without effort. Up close, there was something different about him. Not less intimidating. Just, clearer. More human than I expected. Seatbelt, he said simply, nodding toward Noah. I blinked, then reached to secure it, my hands moving on instinct. Normal. The smallest, strangest moment of normal in the middle of everything else. When I looked up again, his eyes were on me, steady and unreadable. Your son, he said. What is his name? Liam, I answered. He nodded once, like. That mattered. Like everything mattered. The engine started, smooth and controlled, and the car began to move. I watched the street disappear behind us through the tinted window, the place where I had been standing just minutes ago already feeling like something distant, something unreal. My life had been simple. Hard, but simple. Work. Home. My son. And now I was in the back of a black SUV, driving towards something I did not understand, with a man who spoke like he owned outcomes and a child who refused to let go of me. I glanced down at Noah. He was watching the window, quiet now, his breathing steady, his hand still resting lightly against my sleeve. Not gripping anymore. Just, there. And for the first time since this started, I realized something I had not let myself think about. He was calmer. With me. That thought stayed with me as the car turned a corner, the city lights shifting around us, the world outside continuing like nothing had changed. But everything had. And when I finally looked back at the man across from me, one question pressed forward, impossible to ignore. Where are you taking us? The car did not slow down when I asked. It did not hesitate either. It just kept moving, smooth and steady, like the question had already been answered long before I said it out loud. He watched me for a second, then leaned back slightly, one arm resting against the door, completely at ease in a way that made everything else feel more controlled than it should have been. Somewhere no one finds you by accident, he said finally. His voice was calm, but there was weight behind it. Not dramatic. Not threatening. Just certain. I glanced toward the window again, watching the city blur past in streaks of light and shadow, trying to place where we were heading, but the turns came too fast, too precise. This was not a route I recognized. Of course it was not. You talk like this is already decided, I said, turning back to him. Like I do not have a choice. His gaze did not shift. You had a choice, he replied. You made it when you stayed. That landed harder than I expected. Because he was right. I looked down at Noah again, at the way his small hand now rested lightly on my arm instead of gripping it, like he was not afraid of losing me anymore. That should have comforted me. Instead, it made everything feel more real. And if I change my mind? I asked quietly. A brief pause. Not hesitation. Consideration. Then I take you back, he said. After your son is safe. I frowned slightly. And him? I nodded toward Noah. His expression did not change, but something in his eyes did. Something quieter. He comes with me, he said. Simple. Final. I let out a slow breath, leaning back into the seat for the first time since getting in the car. My body was starting to feel the weight of the night now. The exhaustion. The adrenaline fading just enough to let reality settle in. "What is your name?" I asked. It felt strange that I had not asked before. That I had just followed him into this without even knowing that. "Adrian," he said. Just that. No last name. No explanation. Like it was enough. And somehow, it was. "Emily," he added again, quieter this time, like he was making sure it stayed where he put it. I nodded faintly, not sure what to do with that. The car slowed suddenly, turning onto a quieter street, buildings changing around us, less crowded, more residential. My stomach tightened slightly. We were getting closer. "Stop here," I said quickly, leaning forward just a little. "My building is on the next block." The driver did not question it. The car eased to a stop exactly where I asked, smooth and precise. Adrian's eyes flicked toward the window, scanning the street in a way that made me realize he had already assessed it before we even arrived. 2 minutes, he said. Not a suggestion. A limit. I nodded, already reaching for the door. "Stay with him," I told Noah softly. He hesitated, looking up at me, something uncertain flickering across his face. I touched his shoulder gently. "I will be right back. I promise." That seemed to be enough. He nodded once, small but real, and let go. The moment his hand slipped from my sleeve, I felt it. The shift. Like something had been holding me in place and just, released. I stepped out into the cool air, the rain lighter now, almost gone, and hurried toward my building, my heart pounding in a way that had nothing to do with running. Every step felt heavier than it should have. Because I knew when I came back out, I would not be stepping into my old life again. I would be choosing something else. Something I still did not understand. And somehow, I was already too far in to turn around. The hallway smelled like detergent and old carpet, the kind of smell that never really leaves no matter how many times you clean it, and for a second everything felt normal again, like I could pretend the last 30 minutes had not happened, like I could unlock my door, check on Liam, and go to bed. I slowed down as I reached my apartment, my hand hovering over the handle longer than it should have, because I knew the second I stepped inside, I had to decide how much of the truth I was willing to carry with me. I pushed the door open quietly. The apartment was dark except for the small night light in the corner, casting a soft glow across the living room. Liam was exactly where I left him, curled up on the couch with his blanket half kicked off, his small chest rising and falling in that steady rhythm only kids have when they sleep without worry. My chest tightened instantly. This was my world. This was what I understood. I stepped closer, kneeling beside him, brushing his hair back gently. "Hey," I whispered softly, even though I knew he might not wake. His eyes fluttered open anyway, heavy with sleep, confusion settling in slowly as he looked at me. "Mom," he murmured. I forced a small smile, keeping my voice calm even though my heart was racing. "We need to go for a little drive," I said quietly. "Just for tonight." He frowned slightly, blinking up at me. "Now?" I nodded, pulling the blanket around his shoulders as I helped him sit up. "I know it is late. I am sorry. But we are going to stay somewhere safe, okay?" The word safe felt different now. He studied my face for a second longer, like he could sense something I was not saying, then nodded slowly. That trust hit harder than anything else tonight. I moved quickly after that, grabbing a small bag, throwing in the essentials without thinking too much about it. A change of clothes, his favorite hoodie, his inhaler, my wallet. It felt strange packing like this, like I was leaving for something I had not planned. Like I was stepping out of one life and into another without knowing if I could come back. "Mom," Liam said again, softer this time. I turned toward him. "Yeah." He hesitated, then asked, are we in trouble? The question stopped me completely. I crouched down in front of him, meeting his eyes, making sure he could see exactly what I wanted him to see. No, I said firmly. We are not in trouble. A small pause. We are just helping someone. That was the closest thing to the truth I could give him. He nodded again, slower this time, like he was trying to understand something bigger than the words. I zipped the bag and took his hand, guiding him toward the door. The moment I stepped back into the hallway, the air felt different again. Heavier. Like the normal I had just touched was already slipping away. We moved quickly down the stairs, my grip tightening slightly around Liam's hand without me realizing it. When we reached the entrance, I paused for half a second, my eyes adjusting to the street outside. The SUV was still there. Of course it was. Engine running. Waiting. Always waiting. The door opened before I even reached it, like they had been watching the entire time. I helped Liam inside first, feeling him hesitate just slightly as he took in the unfamiliar space, the quiet presence of strangers, the weight of something he could not name. I climbed in after him, pulling the door shut, the sound soft but final once again. Adrian's eyes shifted to Liam immediately, assessing, calculating, but not cold. Never careless. This is my son, I said, my voice steady despite everything. Liam. Adrian gave a single nod, his gaze steady but controlled. He is safe, he said simply. Not to Liam. To me. And for some reason, that mattered more than anything else he could have said. I sat back, pulling Liam closer to me as the car began to move again, the city lights fading behind us. And as I held my son in my arms, with another child watching quietly from the seat beside me and a man who controlled everything sitting across from us, I realized something I could not ignore anymore. This was not just about helping. This was about staying. And I was not sure if I knew how to leave anymore. The car moved differently now, quieter, like the city itself had started to fall away behind us, and inside, everything felt contained. Liam leaned into me, still half asleep, his small hand gripping the edge of my jacket like he did whenever something felt unfamiliar. I wrapped my arm around him tighter, pressing a soft kiss to his hair, grounding myself in something real. Across from us, Noah sat still, his eyes moving between me and Liam, curious but cautious, like he was trying to understand something he had not seen before. Children notice things adults pretend not to. Are we going far? Liam whispered, his voice barely above a breath. I glanced toward Adrian, then back at my son. Just somewhere safe for a little while, I said softly. The answer felt rehearsed even though I had just said it. Liam nodded faintly, trusting, always trusting, and rested his head against me again. That trust was the heaviest thing I carried. He will need to sleep, Adrian said quietly, his voice cutting through the silence without disturbing it. I looked up, meeting his gaze. He will, I agreed. He has school in the morning. The words slipped out automatically, part of a routine that suddenly felt fragile. Adrian studied me for a moment, then gave a small nod, like he understood more than I expected him to. We will make sure that routine is not broken more than necessary, he said. It was a strange promise. Not emotional. Not soft. But deliberate. And somehow, I believed he meant it. The car slowed as we turned onto a long, winding road, the streetlights becoming fewer, replaced by tall gates and quiet shadows. I felt Liam shift slightly beside me, more awake now, his eyes adjusting as he looked out the window. Where are we? He asked. I followed his gaze, watching as the gates ahead opened without a sound, revealing a long driveway lined with trees that seemed to stretch further than I could see. A friend's house, I said, even though the word friend did not feel right. The car moved forward, deeper into the property, the world outside growing quieter, more distant, like we had crossed into something separate from everything I knew. Noah leaned slightly toward the window, his expression calmer now, almost relieved. That did not escape me. Whatever this place was, it meant safety to him. That mattered. You did not have to do this, Adrian said suddenly. His voice was low, thoughtful, like he was speaking more to the moment than to me directly. I looked at him, confused. Bring your son, he clarified. Stay. I held his gaze for a second, then looked down at Liam, at the way he had already settled against me again, trusting that wherever I took him would be the right place. Yes, I did, I said quietly. The answer came easier than I expected. Because it was true. Adrian watched me for a moment longer, something unreadable passing through his expression before it settled back into that calm control. Most people would have walked away, he said. Most people do. I let out a small breath, almost a laugh, but not quite. I am not most people, I replied. The car came to a smooth stop in front of a large house, lights glowing softly through tall windows, the kind of place that looked untouched by the chaos of the world outside. For a second, no one moved. Then the door opened, and the cool night air slipped in, carrying with it the quiet weight of everything that had led us here. I looked down at Liam, then at Noah, then finally at Adrian. And in that moment, I understood something I had not fully admitted yet. This was not temporary. Not really. Because the way he looked at me now, steady and certain, held the same unspoken truth it had from the beginning. I had stepped into his world. And he was not letting me walk out of it the same way I came in. The door opened before I could reach for it, not rushed, not dramatic, just precise, like everything else tonight had been. Warm light spilled out onto the driveway, soft and steady, and for a moment, it felt almost normal. Almost. I stepped out slowly, keeping one arm around Liam as he blinked against the brightness, his small hand tightening slightly around mine. Noah moved first, slipping out of the car with a quiet confidence that had not been there before, like this place belonged to him in a way the street never did. I followed, my eyes taking in everything at once. The house was larger than anything I had ever stepped inside, but it was not the size that caught me. It was the silence. Not empty. Controlled. Like every sound had been decided ahead of time. Come, Adrian said, already moving toward the entrance, not checking if I followed because he already knew I would. And somehow, I did. Inside, the warmth wrapped around us instantly, the air carrying a faint scent of something clean, something calm. Liam shifted closer to me, his voice soft. Mom, this is a mansion. I almost smiled at that, but it did not quite reach the surface. Just stay close to me, I whispered back, brushing his hair lightly. A woman appeared from the hallway ahead, older, composed, her presence quiet but firm in a way that felt practiced. She did not look surprised to see us. That told me more than anything else. Prepare the guest rooms, Adrian said without slowing. 2. She nodded once, her eyes briefly scanning me and Liam, then Noah, as if understanding everything without needing it explained. Of course. Noah moved closer to Adrian now, not touching him, but within reach, like proximity itself was enough. It was subtle, but I noticed. Adrian glanced down at him for a second, something unspoken passing between them, then looked back at me. He will be fine here, he said. Again, not to Noah. To me. I let out a slow breath I did not realize I had been holding. So will my son, I replied quietly. It was not a question. It was a line. Adrian held my gaze for a moment longer, then gave a small nod, like he accepted that boundary for now. So will your son, he repeated. The woman returned, gesturing gently down the hall. This way. I guided Liam forward, feeling the weight of his hand in mine, grounding, real. Every step deeper into the house felt like crossing another invisible line, one I could not step back over as easily as I came in. The hallway opened into a quiet room, soft lighting, clean lines, everything already prepared like we had been expected long before we arrived. Liam looked around slowly, his eyes wide but not afraid. Just, taking it in. We are sleeping here, he asked. I nodded, setting the bag down, kneeling in front of him. Just for tonight, I said gently, even though I was no longer sure that was true. He studied my face for a second, then nodded, trusting again, always trusting. When I stood back up, Adrian was still there, just inside the doorway, not intruding, not distant. Watching. Measuring. Deciding. You can rest, he said. You will need it. I met his gaze, something steady forming inside me despite everything. And tomorrow? I asked. A pause. Just long enough to matter. Tomorrow, he said slowly, we find out why my son was sent to you. The words settled into the room, heavier than anything that came before them. Not found. Sent. I felt my chest tighten, my mind racing through every moment again, every detail I had not questioned enough. And suddenly, this was not just about safety anymore. It was about purpose. About why me. I glanced down at Liam, then toward Noah somewhere down the hall, then back at Adrian. And in that moment, one thought became impossible to ignore. I did not just walk into his world. Someone had placed me in it. And whatever came next, was already waiting.